We decided to finally box up all the old CDs taking up precious shelf space. The box was very heavy, filled with all our memories. Husband had to run out for an essential errand and told me to just leave the box and he'd grab it when he got back and take it to the shed out back. Here comes the FU. I decided I'd just do it myself and save him the work. I managed to heft the box up in my arms and fumbled my way out the door. I got to the top of the deck stairs and knew there were 4 stairs, so I counted since I couldn't see in front of me. Turns out there's actually 5 stairs. I missed the last stair and rolled both ankles, fell to the concrete, skinned up my legs. Within 30 seconds, one ankle was double the size and blue. So here I was, the only adult home with 2 teens and unable to walk. I also had no phone on me. So I started screaming for my daughter, whose window was right above me. Thankfully, she heard me and came running. I had her fetch my phone and first called my husband. He was 25 minutes out and the pain was unbearable. So I had to call 911. Long story short, after 4 hours in the ER, I came home with a fractured left ankle, severely sprained right ankle, a nice pair of orthopedic boots, a set of crutches, and a script for a wheelchair. Next time, I'm listening to my husband. Oh, and I have to follow up with the ortho doc later this week. TL, Dr. Husband told me not to move a box. I moved said box, fell down the stairs, destroyed both ankles and have to get a wheelchair. Edit, I have acquired my wheelchair and it's helping immensely. I only have to get help standing up, then I turn around and sit in it, roll myself to the bathroom doorway, chair doesn't fit through, then use my crutches and boots to take the 3 steps to the now raised toilet with handles. Also, as was pointed out, this isn't my first experience with a wheelchair. I have other disabling conditions that require wheelchairs for short times, like trips to the zoo, cruises, those ships are long, Disney World, etc. I've always rented one for those when needed. This is the first time I've had to use one in my home. I already had disabled plates, so that's a non-issue if I were to actually go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I'm seeing the ortho Thursday for a follow-up. I will edit this if the diagnosis changes. Preliminary results are 1 severe sprain and 1 hairline fracture. It could have been much worse and I'm hoping I'll be able to have my husband carry that wheelchair to the shed sooner rather than later. Sorry to disappoint anyone who was expecting a paralysis story or domestic abuse. I always aim to please, but I hope to never experience either of those things. Thanks for all the comments, votes, and awards. This actually happened about 30 minutes ago and I still can't process it. So my fiancé and I live together in our house and because of the whole quarantine thing, she was worried about her mother being all alone so we invited her to stay with us and she agreed. A bit awkward at first but she's good company and passed the awkward stage within 2 days. Yeah, so I woke up this morning and my fiancé wasn't in bed but I could hear the shower in our bathroom. Feeling a bit frisky, I decided to join her and maybe play around a bit. Got fully naked and ready to go. I opened the door and the speakers in the bathroom were playing music and then it hit me. Maybe I should tiptoe in and seductively start kissing from behind like in the movies. It looks hot there so maybe it'll be the same in real life, right? So I stealthily made it into the shower and wrapped my arms around my fiancé. When she screamed I just started laughing, second wrong move, and said in a deep voice, "It's just me baby," and tried again. It was only when she shouted my name and told me to get the flip out I realized that it was actually her mother. Since I'm a slow idiot, I just stood there for about 5 seconds just staring at her as she covered herself before apologizing and running out. I'm sitting in my car in the garage right now typing this and I still don't know where my fiancé is or why the flip her mother was showering in our private bathroom instead of the house bathroom. So that's my life right now and I don't know how I'll live through this. TL, Doctor, I woke up and thought I should join my fiancé in the shower but it turned out to be her mother. My life is over. Edit, I didn't realize it wasn't my fiancé sooner because the both of them literally look like sisters. Her mother doesn't age at all and they share the same hair color and body type for lack of a better word. Update, after spending the past hours across the street with my friend building up confidence, I finally went back home and found both of them sitting on the couch. I first went up to kiss my fiancé and greet her but she sort of turned her cheek as I came. I was bloody sweating bricks at this point, and said something around the lines of "So my mother says you two had quite the morning." Holy shoot, I can't even explain how scared I was since they both looked serious so I just started explaining my side of the story. When all was said, they both kind of looked at each other then broke into laughter. Apparently her and Sweet's shower had terrible pressure this morning so my fiancé said she could try ours. So basically we're back in the awkward phase and her mother can barely look me in the eye, and though my fiancé says she's fine with it and understands, I can tell she's a bit angry/disturbed by the fact her mother and I saw each other naked, and also that I didn't realize it wasn't her soon. Needless to say, I'll never surprise my fiancé in the shower ever again. After 12 years of working in restaurants in chains up to fine dining James Beard type spots, I have zero faith that the restaurant industry can handle any sort of responsible reopening measures. Some individual restaurants I've worked at or whose owners I know, I'd trust to act to keep their staff and guests safe. But the chain restaurants that make up the majority of restaurant employers and the already shadily run spots that exist in every city, the idea of them implementing measures to keep their staff safe is a joke to me. We are talking about an industry that is rife with labor abuses and wage theft. That routinely forces staff to work regardless of their health. One that can struggle to operate under current health and safety guidelines. One where staff is often expected to bend over backwards to each and every inane request, want, or complaint the overly entitled guest can come up with. That's not an industry that's going to willingly cap the number of guests, allow their staff to take extra time to ensure heightened sanitation and hygiene, promote staff taking off if ill, or any number of things that should be occurring once we begin relaxing restrictions on businesses. No, this is industry that I expect to let that extra party in because the manager doesn't want Karen who sees that purposefully kept open to maintain proper distancing table and demands she be sat now. This is an industry that's not going stand up for the server who gets a complaint because they handed down plates because proper service would require them getting right up next to the guest. This is the industry where that line cook can't call out with what hopefully is just a cold without getting shoot from the boss. I'm glad I'm out of the industry, and I'm sorry for all the thankless extra work you'll all be having to do, probably earlier than you should be doing it, for somehow still ungrateful guests. And to anyone going out to eat in those early stages, take a second and realize it's not going to be like it was, not at first. You will wait longer to get sat, you will wait longer for your food, your served won't be checking on your table every 2 bites. Things had to change to even allow you the option of eating in that restaurant, so just calm down and say thank you. So about 4 years ago I was living with an ex-boyfriend, we'll call him up useless prick, and his aunt, PPP pill popper Pam, and her boyfriend, LL loser Len. I woke up in the middle of the night and had to pee. Up was asleep in bed when I got up. I walked across the house and PPP's door was open, she and LL were both passed out. I made my way sleepily to the bathroom and saw the light was on. Since I knew everyone was asleep, I assumed PPP left the light on, and opened the door. I was wrong. I saw multiple things in a few seconds. The first thing I remember is that it smelled like horrible shit and that someone had just taken a shower based off of the steam. Secondly, there were clothes folded up into squares and organized on the ground. There was a man, on the toilet. I, having manners, and very much still half asleep, jumped and apologized and closed the door. I panicked and went to my room and tried to wake up, but he was, of course, useless. I texted PPP and said, "Hey, there is a man in the bathroom." She texted back, "I know, it's okay, he's a friend of mine." This calmed me down and I messaged back something like, "Okay, thanks, just checking." And she said, "No problem, go back to sleep," and I did. The next day, I bring it up when everyone is around. PPP says she never texted me. She was high on pills and passed out cold, and she would never allow a friend to just come in like that, and that it sounded like it was the homeless man who walked our street constantly. He had used her phone. TLDR, the intruder broke in, took a shower, shoot, and inventory, then texted me that all was well and to go back to sleep from my roommate's phone. Kevin has been one of my closest friends since college. Absolute genius, top of his undergrad and business school courses, high-flying consultant, etc. etc. It would all be truly nauseating, if he weren't such an amazing guy. We were flatmates for a while in London. Literally the perfect person to live with, tidy, fun, but also understood boundaries. So how could he possibly be a Kevin, you ask? At one point when we were living together, I went for a 3-week adventure holiday, so was pretty much out of contact. The UK is so much better on holiday allowance than the US, but I digress. Anyway, I asked Kevin to take care of my plants, while I was gone. Seemed a simple ask. Gave Kevin instructions to water them every couple of days and rough amounts of water needed. Came back and the dear boy seemed very guilty. "Sorry, but I think I may have killed some of your plants. I watered them as you said, but something may have went wrong." I walk in and look around at my plants, figuring he might have forgotten a couple of days or something. Well, he had killed a couple of live plants. Fair enough, things happen, right? But then I started smelling this god-awful smell in a couple of places. Couldn't figure it out. Mr. Tidy, remember? Turns out Kevin had watered all of my dried plants, think bundles of sculptural sticks, etc. A bit of fake ivy where I was trying to make an ugly window ledge look pretty. He'd watered them diligently every 2 days for 3 weeks. Pools of vile water in the bottom of their containers, like some kind of semi-sentient primordial ooze that absolutely reeked. Black mold creeping up the sides of the containers and on the bases of the plants that yielded clouds of spores when I pulled them out. Black mold being toxic, of course, so was a bit scary. Had to trash plants, containers, etc. in case they very likely would make us sick. Turns out my dear, sweet, genius Kevin had noticed the dank hellhole smell, but thought that was probably normal for plants at some point in their lives and didn't want to let me down by not watering. So he lived in our veritable plague farm of a flat for all 3 weeks, suffering in silence. I really had to struggle not to die laughing. Kevin was so earnest and had tried so hard. But good lord, sometimes even geniuses can be complete idiots. My sister, 35, and her new boyfriend, 30, they had been dating for a month before quarantine, are at my mom's 55 house during the pandemic. My mom is getting pretty frustrated because her youngest, me, has left the nest and she likes having the house to herself. My sister's boyfriend is gross. He doesn't wash his hands, he leaves mystery stains all over the carpets and floors, he has some sort of infection/open wound on his wrist that he doesn't cover or clean, he doesn't shower, and he doesn't clear his plates before putting them in the sink with no garbage disposal. With all of his hygiene issues, he'll still do things like reach into a new bag of bread my mom bought without washing his hands, having the open wound, and he had just gotten back from the hospital for the 3rd time in 2 days because of his wound. My mom's about to lose her mind being there with them. Going back to the dishes thing, he doesn't clear his dishes, and she has told them several times, clear off your plates or do your own dishes. He doesn't do either. After a week of these soggy noodles sitting in a bowl in the sink, my mom had enough. His coat was sitting on a chair in the kitchen, so she took the ramen out of the bowl and stuck it in his coat pocket. Then she washed all of the dishes in the sink. He grabbed his coat a bit later to leave and go to a friend's house, to smoke pot with a bunch of friends during a pandemic, and she just smiled and waved him out the door. Yesterday my family and I were playing in the backyard. It was a little chilly, so I turned on the fire pit. My wife, as usual, said that the flames were too high and to turn it down. I told her that everything is just fine and leave it to me. My 3 kids were playing in the yard and my wife went inside to get her phone. My little 3-year-old then walked between me and the fire pit. She is a tiny cutie with a wild mop of crazy hair. Well, when she got between me and the pit, of course the wind shifted towards us. That's when I got the unmistakable smell of burning hair. I spun her around immediately to see the curled up little burnt ends. Thank God she was 100% fine. Now I had to figure out how I could get out of this. I then said, "Okay kids, time to go in." I asked my wife, "Doesn't Sarah need a bath?" I lucked out here, she said yes. I ran her upstairs and put her in the bath and washed her hair with the usual shampoo and conditioner. Then put the spray in her hair and combed her to straighten it all out. This morning she was running around and my wife says to me, "Look at her hair, isn't it so pretty and nice?" She said, "Did Daddy clean and brush your hair for you? It's so pretty." I think I got away with it. Don't get me wrong. I don't usually sweep things under the rug. However, this one was huge. My wife would not have let this one go. I have also learned my lesson about the fire pit, and I just thank the dear Lord our little baby had no harm. I'm a very lucky dad. TL, doctor, my wife said the fire was too high and I didn't lower it. My 3-year-old ended up burning her hair. I cleaned her all up and I think I got away with it. However, I didn't get away with it at all. My child could have been severely hurt, and for that I'm sick about it. Had this one lady repeatedly ask where we have thermometers, and the associate goes, "We are all out of stock." So then the lady goes, "Well, where would they be if you had them in stock?" Cashier replies, "All 7, in the middle left as you walk from this side, but again, we don't have them in stock." Lady answers, "So all 7. Cashier, "Yes, but we don't have any right now." Lady comes to the drop-off 2 minutes later. The girl said aisle 7 for the thermometers, but there are none. WTF. I, 20F, was probably 15 or 16 when this happened, and I live in Jersey. My neighbor had her boyfriend, who we thought owned a construction company, move in. They decided to redo their backyard patio, did construction for a few months and had it finished by summer. One day in November I was getting off of the bus and saw this luxury car with blacked out windows parked in front of my house. Since I was alone, I was scared and almost called 911 but decided to just wait it out and didn't think much more of it. A few hours later, I hear drilling and realize that there's 30+ cars outside, tape blocking off our road, and what seemed like 100 FBI agents. Turns out my neighbor's boyfriend was a part of a gang. They were digging up the back porch and found illegal guns and a body. The girlfriend didn't know anything about it. I don't know if he murdered the person or not, but either way I don't want to meet him ever again. Edit: I forgot to say I live in an affluent suburb of NYC, so this is very out of the ordinary. Obligatory mobile post disclaimer. This actually happened some years ago but I am still often reminded of it and wanted to share the story. I work as a cinema manager, RIP my job, and have for many years. As the manager or usher at the ticket podium, it is your job to collect tickets, greet guests, and maintain order with lines while the other ushers clean auditoriums on a schedule. While the ushers are cleaning, it is generally normal on a weekend for there to be lines forming in the lobby while guests wait for their auditorium to be cleaned. When it is particularly busy, we will often separate the lines by film title and showtime and make public announcements for ease of entry and clarity for guests just arriving. For example, on a busy night I as the ticket taker may say this line here is for Star Wars only. On this night, we were opening a new film called For Colored Girls Only. I start to notice the lobby filling up and decided to start breaking up the lines. So without thinking, I loudly announced to everyone in the lobby this line here is for colored girls only. This line is for colored girls only. It had not dawned on me how this had come off until my black coworker busted up laughing and I looked out to the lobby to see dozens of confused, offended faces. I stumbled over my words for a minute and just face-palmed myself into a shell until another co-worker relieved me to go be somewhere else and collect myself for a moment. Not funny then, absolutely hilarious today. TL, doctor was just trying to do my job and accidentally brought back segregation by making a line explicitly for black women at the cinema. That's IT. I'm cutting you out of my will. And hashtag X200B. How many melodramas have started that way? And hashtag X200B. Well, not in Scotland, pal. And hashtag X200B. Like most jurisdictions, Scotland has testate and intestate succession. Intestate covers where there is no will, but it also sometimes covers where there is / a will. And hashtag X200B. Huh? Why is that? And hashtag X200B. In the case where there's a will, but the will is challenged, it goes through intestate succession to a point. The point is covered by law. And hashtag X200B. See, in Scotland, the law provides for preemptive rights to heritable and movable property. Heritable property is stuff like houses, land, other things which are fixed in place. Movable property is all the rest, cash, insurance, car, boat, that hideous vase from Aunt Maud which nobody wants to take home. Wait, it's worth 20k? Mine. And hashtag X200B. // Sorry. I'll carry on now. And hashtag X200B. How it works in intestate, challenged will situation. And hashtag X200B. Surviving spouse has preemptive right to X amount of heritable property. Made up numbers, spouse has right to first 500k of heritable property. Children of the marriage have rights to 250k. And hashtag X200B. Then you move on to movable property. Spouse has rights to 350k. Children of the marriage to 200k. I think children of the decedent who were from a previous relationship come in here, too, but sorry for my fallible memory if I am vague on them. I think their rights are similar to children of the marriage, but not 100% sure. And hashtag X200B. Once the legal preemptive rights are exhausted you move on to the will, right? Hold on there, Chief, we aren't there yet. And hashtag X200B. Once the legal rights are exhausted, then the remainder of the estate is split into thirds. 1/3 to spouse, 1/3 to children of the marriage, and the remaining third is then disposed of according to the will. And hashtag X200B. Cutting you out of my will? Nope. I can challenge the will and have your estate split up 18 ways from Sunday. And hashtag X200B. Children of the marriage, you keep using this phrase, what does it mean? It means all children of the relationship, Illegitimacy is irrelevant. There's no difference between bio children and adopted children, they are all legally the same. And hashtag X200B. What about stepchildren? Not sure, sorry. I think they'd come under the third of the estate left after exhausting all other rights, but I am not, and have never been, a lawyer. Go speak to one. And hashtag X200B. And hashtag X200B. And, as always, there's a terminology difference because Scotland. You might call it probate, but in Scotland it's confirmation. There you go. And hashtag X200B. So this takes place about 15 years ago. I worked in a computer lab at the local university, specifically the lab for the Performing Arts department. Anyway, I was making my rounds one day and a graduate student requested assistance with her formatting. She was wanting to switch the style of her endnotes on her thesis. I went over to assist and noticed that she had /4 copies of her thesis open and they all appeared to be at different points. I did not think much of it as I have known some grad students who have a new copy for each revision of their thesis so they could keep track. I assist her and get her formatting changed and she stayed the rest of the time we were open, another 3 hours or so. I did not think anything of it until the same student showed up a few weeks later as crunch time for the grad students approached. She was wanting assistance printing all the documents she had and making them into a single print job. I went over and saw that this woman had created a new document for each one of the pages in her thesis. She also had a few that were slightly over and she was wanting to make sure the formatting lined up. I let her know that this was highly unusual and that it would be best to combine all the documents into a single Word document so that she could then print them out and have all the formatting line up. I did let her know I would show her how to do it with the first file but she would have to do it for the rest. As it was coming close to the end of my shift I let my replacement know what was going on and left. I spoke to my coworker a few weeks later and they reported she spent like 12 hours copying and pasting her files into a single file. This isn't one specific experience, but an overall experience from a number of clients. Yes, we want System X, not System Y, even though you have told us repeatedly that System Y is much better suited for us due to our lack of supporting infrastructure. But you must understand that we have no additional budget for the infrastructure required for System X. What workaround can you suggest? Today is Monday, and we must insist on the quotation being received by Friday, although our own security procedures prohibit us from disclosing any details about the project to unvetted personnel. Our vetting procedure takes 2 weeks. Yes, we know our system is out of your 5-year warranty. Yes, we know we signed a disclaimer showing we chose not to buy the extended warranty. Yes, we understand that we are not entitled to any discount on replacement parts, but you must understand that this system was installed only 11 years ago and we expect you to support it, regardless of the fact that the damage was caused by one of our own unqualified technicians. You must provide us with replacement parts at zero cost within 72 hours. I got a package in the mail. Package was taped up pretty well. So I pull out my pocket knife. Just a basic tactical style knife that I carry. I keep it razor sharp. I flick my wrist to open it. Doesn't open. Flick it a little harder. No bueno. One more time for the win. I flick it hard. The force of the blade snapping open yanks the knife out of my hand. It flies fast directly at my fiancée who is sitting on the couch a few feet away. Land directly on her eye socket. Instant scream and tears. Then the brief thought that I just lodged a 4-inch blade into her head makes my face go white. But by some miracle I realize the knife landed perfectly so only the handle hit her. Obviously it's fine now. But that was the biggest heart attack of my life. TL, doctor tried opening a pocket knife and accidentally threw it at my fiancée's eye. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. Our regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A coworker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about TJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. I love reading actual court records and came across her full testimony. It's long but interesting. What do you all think about this case? She is still claiming she is innocent? At one point they make her read from her journal an entry basically leaving a suicide note. She suffered with depression quite badly and I think she struggled juggling 3 kids. Also their finances were all over the place, struggling to even pay their mortgage on that big house. Just before the incident her husband had been refused a loan from the bank so they could go away. I think this all got to her and she may have had a breakdown and thought to kill herself and take the boys with her. I think she killed them first and then tried to take her own life but couldn't do it, then panicked and made this whole story up about an intruder. What do you guys think? This story didn't happen until years after I was out of the military. It's not about me or anyone I know. I think you all will enjoy it. But it is quite appropriate for this forum, I assure you. I was working a job that required frequent travel, mostly international. I can't remember where we were going that trip or even what airport I was at, but we were waiting for our flight. Hurry up and wait. I've done it before. We're sitting in the seat near our terminal when 2 uniformed soldiers walked by with several security guards following. I can't recall what about the situation caught my attention, maybe the somber looks on their faces, but there was something that drew me in. They stopped a few terminals down on a flight that was just arriving, stopped at the edge of the carpeted area, standing at attention. It was an unusual sight and I couldn't figure out what they were doing. The flight begins debarking and passenger after passenger are leaving, those soldiers just stood there standing at attention. Then the last 2 passengers exit, uniformed soldiers themselves, solemnly carrying a single flag as if it were a carton of eggs. Marching up to the 2 waiting soldiers. Salutes and they exchange the flag. I'm standing stock still and I notice something quite impressive. The entire terminal has shut down. Every single person in the place is standing, quietly and respectfully watching the proceedings. The 2 soldiers begin marching back our way with their flag. Every eye is on them, several people saluted, veterans I guess, including myself. And just as they were passing us, a young boy behind me asks his dad, "All that for a flag?" His dad leaned down and whispered, "That's a person, son. It means they're bringing a fallen soldier home." Not another word was spoken until all 3 of those soldiers were completely out of sight. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMS got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. Years ago my father worked in a GM dealer's garage in a fair-sized city in the Midwest. This would have been late 60s, early 70s. The tech next to him was doing drivability on a truck with a 2-barrel carb. It was spitting and sputtering, and although the technician had tried several things, it was all to no avail. It seemed that the carburetor was going into a lean condition every time you tried to accelerate. So finally the tech was leaning up over the engine and peering down into the carburetor, watching the squirters that sent the fuel into the center of the carb every time you applied the accelerator. This would give you an idea if the carburetor was obstructed or the accelerator pump inside the carb was bad. Watching intently and close to the carb, the tech grabbed the linkage and applied the gas. Sure enough, it went lean, and there's where his plan went wrong. Lacking any PPE for this job, he was wholly unprepared when the engine backfired as a result of the lean condition, spitting a fine mist of gasoline right into his eyes. Blinded temporarily, he in a fit of rage reached back behind him and grabbed his hammer and proceeded to clean the carburetor off the intake with one mighty swing. Stood up and announced he had found the issue. It was a defective carburetor. In the same shop, Dad had a truck that was giving him fits. Missed consistently on one cylinder after startup. New truck. He checked the spark, all good. Checked the compression, all good. Checked the timing, all good. Pulled the valve cover and checked the camshaft lobes, all good. Even started swapping components with the identical truck. Nothing worked. He finally ended up getting approval to pull the head to check for a cracked block or bad head. All looked great. Puzzled, he finally started putting it back together, and that was when he found the problem. When they had cast the exhaust manifold, a bit of casting flash had sealed off one exhaust port on the manifold. Completely. So it would start and run just fine for a short minute, but then the exhaust on that cylinder had literally nowhere to go. A new manifold and the issue was solved. It was one of those diagnostic horror stories where the solution took about an hour and finding it took much longer. The things we see at times. This actually did happen today. We have a 16-month-old very smart doggy. He can open all the doors in the house and is very determined to get what he wants. We feed him raw food and we keep it in his dog fridge/freezer in the garage. Obviously he figured this out and would always try to open the garage door to get in there to try and get his food, so we lock the door at all times unless we're in there, more than just general safety. It's his tea time, I get the garage key, go outside with him and unlock the door. His meals are in pre-made portions, so it literally takes 10 seconds to go in there, empty a portion into his bowl, and I hear a slap on the door as he tries to open the door. I tell him it's coming now, pick up the bowl and walk 2 steps. To find he's managed to hit the key and lock it, and I'm now locked in the garage. I go to grab my phone to message the neighbor, then I realize I'd left my phone charging inside. Doggo couldn't understand why I wasn't bringing his food out and keep doing his yap bark at the door and the window, which doesn't open. So that's how my partner found me when he got home from work shortly after and our doggo finally got fed. I have now made a mental note to take the key out and bring it inside the garage with me when I get his food. TL, drive, my dog hit the key in the garage door and locked me in there for about half an hour. The ex-wife asked me to sign a quitclaim deed because her parents were worried I'd force the sale of the house and leave them homeless. All I wanted to do was keep the peace since the in-laws still live there, they're decent people, and they're caring for our 6-year-old son since I'm a first responder. I just heard the ex sold my furniture and electronics to her sister, and invited her much younger perpetually unemployed boyfriend to move in. So my $50,000 down payment plus thousands in furniture and electronics all went in her pocket as I learned she's been sleeping with this a-hole for months, which led to her gaslighting me into thinking our divorce was my fault for working too many hours. TL, doctor, never sign a quitclaim. Regardless of your situ, keep your hard-earned money and live your life. Okay, here's the context. My college switched to online classes like everyone else, so I stayed home after spring break. One of my roommates, out of 4, stayed in town with his girlfriend and her brother, and subsequently moved back into our house because said brother works at the hospital and they figured it was too big of a risk. My girlfriend and I went back to our respective suburban hometowns to stay with our parents where we've both been isolating. LDR is obviously difficult enough as is, but my girlfriend in particular has been having a really hard time back home to the point where I find myself worrying about her mental health a significant amount. We decided that if my planned summer internship at home was cancelled, we'd move back to my house in our college town for the summer. When I initially brought this idea up to my roommate, he was not only fine with it but excited we could all spend the summer together. This week, I got a call that my internship was not cancelled but thankfully postponed until June. As sort of a compromise, I suggested to my girlfriend that we could move back into the house from mid-May until I have to go back home to start working. I brought this up to said roommate, who was suddenly very concerned about the fact that we're putting them in danger for no legitimate reason. Of course, both my girlfriend and I have taken virtually every measure we can to stay safe, and we both thankfully live with parents who have been working from home since early March. Nevertheless, my roommate pretty much demanded that I give him the specific details as to why we're coming back, to which I said I understand his concern and we're taking every precaution we can, but I don't feel the need to justify our decision, seeing as I have continued to pay rent just as he has while not occupying the house. Am I being unreasonable? I honestly didn't even expect that this would be an issue and was just letting him know as a heads up that we'd be coming in 3 weeks, so it's not as if I'm springing this upon him last second. I know that if I was to explain specifically what my girlfriend has been dealing with at home he'd probably understand, but I don't feel like I need to share that kind of sensitive information with him, given we're not questioning why he chose to stay at our house specifically rather than with his girlfriend's family. I'm a cafe manager in Australia. With the outbreak of coronavirus things have been tough. Gone from working full-time to 12 hours a week. When it was announced that we could go to takeaway only, my heart and soul left me. I know how dramatic. The place I work in is based around regulars. They have rallied behind us so much. The last morning of table service every single regular tipped me so that I would be here at the end. We have started take-home meals. One gentleman always tips me $100 every time he comes in. Twice a week. So many regular customers leave a small tip. Thank you. Honestly, you don't have to, and I protest every time. I'm more touched you care. I work in an affluent suburb and most have checked that I am going to be okay. I love you guys. I can't wait till this is over and I can come to your table and be my usual annoying self. Oh, and I'm from Australia. I do not expect tips. I don't even have a tip jar out. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. Hey everyone, have you had enough of inadequate safety protocols and a lack of employee benefits and hazard pay? As things are now, many retail pharmacy companies are endangering both the public and employees due to a lack of corporate action. I decided to write a 13-page report of recommendations and send it to my colleagues and the Senior Director of Health and Safety Matters. Corporate dismissed all of my recommendations, essentially stating that my recommendations for improved safety protocols are unnecessary and irrelevant, though they do not use those words. The reasoning for this is that our company is following all CDC and OSHA guidelines and regulations needed for retail pharmacies. Furthermore, they state retail pharmacies are classified differently and thus have less strict guidelines, which is true, but I fear the sweeping generalities are insufficient. They do not address all my recommendations/concerns and do not touch employee benefits and pay. The report discusses operational vulnerabilities that put everyone at risk while providing recommendations. It draws heavily from OSHA and FDA regulations as well as CDC and WHO guidelines. I'm a pharmacy technician trainee, so the report focuses on the pharmacy in regards to operations, but a lot is applicable to the storefront. My colleagues held my recommendations in high regard, and we are all striving to innovate and intensify our pharmacy's safety protocols to keep our patients and ourselves safe. New ideas come every day. The report also addresses humane benefits and pay such as hazard pay, paid sick and family leave, protecting mental well-being, paid mental health leave, a paycheck protection program, and more. In the report, I speak only from my direct knowledge of operations in one pharmacy and my limited perspective, but I suspect these concerns are shared by frontline personnel across the nation. Further input from colleagues and experts is encouraged and required. If we want to protect ourselves, our families, our friends, and all frontline personnel, we must work together to devise better safety protocols and stop management's irresponsibility and unjust treatment of its employees. Most of all, we must remember our prime directive: stopping this pandemic. You can view my paper from Google Drive and #X200B. I hope you will join us. To have your voice heard and get involved, please email me at my somewhat ostentatious email address, covid19.response.task.force@protonmail.com. If you feel you work in unsafe conditions, you can file a complaint with OSHA and request an inspection. Follow the link. Stay strong and don't relent in your efforts to keep everyone safe. Turns out that exercise bras are more important than I thought, as the cups bend open when you hold the handlebars, so who knows what people have been seeing, because I genuinely didn't notice until a wasp flew straight to the bottom of the cup and got stuck after I jumped off the bike and straightened my posture. The F-king thing got stuck under my right nipple, so I pull my bra away from my chest so it can crawl out, but no, as soon as it got out of the cup it goes mental and starts stinging me. Right next to my neighbor's window, to my horror, are both smiling/laughing right at me when I turn to go back home. Literally got 5 meters from the house, husband wheels my abandoned new expensive e-bike in the house, complaining about how I shouldn't have dropped it so hard as I start stripping and hunching over like a man who got kicked in the balls, but get hurt so much deeper than I was expecting, and the swelling has made my boob look even weirder than usual. Some good news: turns out I'm not as allergic to wasp stings as I used to be. Kinda glad we're in lockdown, because I don't know if I can ever speak to Jeff or his wife ever again. Evidence. TL, doctor, wore wrong bra for cycling, bra bent open and a wasp flew right in and I flashed the neighbor. Mods, delete this if it isn't necessarily a tale. I have worked in call centers, telecom and internet carries, for about 20 years now. I started as a customer service rep, moved around to tech support, then training, and now in a support role. I worked through 9/11 with corporate customers and their telecom services. The day it happened, all lines were so busy, no one could get through. Then we went through the aftermath. I've seen folks affected by weather events that drove call volume and angry customers. My mom also works on the phones now as well. She lives with me and we are both working from home. I am managing staffing for one company's call centers, she is taking medical billing calls for a hospital service. I hear the calls she's getting. It's heartbreaking. I see the call volume from COVID-19 for my own company. 300 calls in queue, 4-hour hold or call back. This week it's calmer. I feel so much for you all. Hang in there. People that are calling are at their wits' end. I know it's hard to let it all roll off of your back. Make sure you are taking your breaks and really breaking away. Then get back to it, nose to the grindstone. I hope you know folks like me are trying to help make your workday easier in any way we can. These have been hard days. I'm proud of you for working hard and keeping a level head. If you are struggling, that is okay too. You don't always have to be strong. Above all, make sure you are taking care of yourselves. You can't help others on an empty tank. Hang in there. I'm rooting for you all during this time. This happened roughly 2 hours ago. To give some backstory, I go to a very well-known university and I had exam today for applied linear algebra that is a proctored exam through Proctorio. Now if you don't know what Proctorio is, it is a remote proctor that ensures you're the one taking the exam and there's no funny business going on or it flags anything that it can see from your camera, applications, mic, and nearly anything else you can think of. I had texted my girlfriend something along the lines of, "I put my phone and notebook in the bathroom hey so I can cheat he. I said this jokingly and had no intention of actually cheating, nor have I ever cheated on any proctored exam. My girlfriend hadn't replied and I closed out my messages app on my Mac and everything else and proceeded to start my exam. Here's where I start to flip up. I didn't turn Do Not Disturb on, so I get a text message during my exam from Wi-Fi and I left it alone. For some reason my Microsoft apps decided they need to update and my laptop needed to tell me all about it. IT minimized my browser and since my GF texted me, my messages app opened and wide open on the screen as my text message on display. My professor was already generous enough to let me have an extension for my exam due to issues I've had at home and with my personal health etc. and now that happened. I didn't go to the bathroom to cheat or even move out of my seat during the exam, but I know it's flagged and I know they'll see it. TL, doctor didn't turn Do Not Disturb on. I sent my GF a text saying I was going to cheat on my exam as a joke. My laptop minimized my remote proctor and now I'm likely flagged for suspicious activity. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Can't think of anywhere else to post this, so I'll just type it out here. A previous post that was wonderful written, that basically said op doesn't trust bars/restaurants to reopen safely low-key inspired this coming rant. In the middle of February I left a job managing a coffee shop to be GM of the very large bar/music venue/restaurant that I've been tending at for the past year. I had a ton of great ideas, really put in a lot of work to turn things around and fix all of the previous management's mistakes, and I made great money there. In all ways it was basically my dream job. We shut down BC of the virus over a month ago, and I'm pretty sure that when my state allows us to reopen I won't be going back. The owner and the only other manager don't seem to care very much for anything besides money, the owner, and getting high and making tips, the other manager. I have a baby and elderly parents, and we've lost most employees during this, which means a lot of work and responsibility will fall on me. I don't trust my customers as far as I can throw them to maintain social distancing or personal hygiene. I don't trust that the owner cares for our safety and well-being, and I don't trust anyone else there to back me up if I have to say something to a customer about operating at less than maximum capacity or any of the new social etiquette. Anyways, I've worked in service in some capacity for the past 10 years. Sometimes just as a part-time server outside of a real job, sometimes as a full-time bartender, in the past few years as management, and this job was literally my dream for where I'm at in my life right now, and I'm just super bummed and disappointed in the handling of all this and wanted to vent to other service workers. Delete if not allowed, but if it stays up, thanks to everyone who is still sitting around in closed restaurants preparing to go orders, and especially thanks to the pizza people who I'm sure have it rough. Don't know if this really belongs here, but I just found out that the town a little north of mine, Kenosha, Wisconsin, the police made an announcement that they will not be arresting anyone if restaurants and bars open back up to the public. My heart goes out to the Wisconsin folks out there now having to put their lives in even more danger due to the stupidity of a couple people trying to make more money. I also wanted to give a big thanks to all the servers and food workers out there doing a bang-up job despite everything that's happening. My own restaurant I work at being flooded with people every minute of the day, more so than when we were dine-in and takeout. While other business are falling and closing, the people in my town love this little spot so much they're literally breaking all rules just to get a bite to eat, and it's terrifying. Science teacher had went on a business trip in Florida right when a massive storm was about to hit. He was with his wife and they were stuck in their hotel with nothing to do. Since there was nothing to do besides eat, they went to eat breakfast downstairs and everyone had a candle because everyone else was stuck in their rooms. The Kevin in this story has been friends with my teacher for a while but isn't the brightest. It was dark downstairs and a girl had lost an earring. She had asked everyone to help find it and they all agreed. Now only one candle was lit and everyone had to light one candle to the next like a take a flame pass it on, and I guess Kevin didn't get the memo and forgot to get his candle lit. Since everyone had their candle lit, it was kind of bright and he did not realize it was not lit. As he got further from the crowd of people he started to notice as it was getting darker and it took him a whole 5 minutes to realize his candle wasn't lit and he had to go get it lit. This was Kevin's wife's story. She and her husband had went to a garage sale nearby and trying to find a toaster because Kevin wanted a PB&J and he was obsessed with PB&J sandwiches and liked them toasted. So they found a toaster for like $5 and they took it to the hotel. The wife had to go to the bathroom and the husband put his bread in. She was in the bathroom a bit and decided to wait and listen because it had been a few minutes and nothing happened. 10 minutes pass and nothing still, so she checks on him and he is just sad. She asks why and he says it took him 10 whole minutes to realize that the toaster had no plug. Well, this is my first story on here and all credit goes to my science teacher to telling us this story. Tifu for not listening to my dad. I'm in mobile, first post here, 16F, actually happened yesterday not today, etc. I went four-wheeling in the sand dunes with my dad, my friend, and her dad. The dads had their own four-wheelers and me and her shared. We drove half and half, but when the FU happened I was driving. My dad passed me and flagged me down, so I stopped. He said put the strap on your helmet the right way. If the strap isn't on right it doesn't do anything. And make sure you drive slowly. I nodded, laughed, and drove away because of course I wasn't going to get into a crash. He just shook his head and went off speeding into the distance. We rode down the sand dunes going really fast and it felt like a roller coaster. We were speeding up and down them. At the top of every one I'd stop and look down to make sure it wasn't a sand cliff. Well, apparently I couldn't tell what was a cliff and what wasn't. We flew off and got about 8 feet of air. While we were soaring I could feel it in my gut that this wasn't going to end right. We landed and I slammed into the four-wheeler handles, my leg slammed into the front of the four-wheeler, and my friend slammed into my body with her body. My first thoughts were, did I just break all my ribs? And hey, where did my sunglasses go? My helmet had flown off after me hitting my head on the steering handles and was about 7 feet behind us. I never did find my sunglasses. My ribs aren't broken, but severely bruised. My legs are badly bruised and my groin area is in a lot of pain from the crash. My neck has suffered from horrible whiplash and my chin is severely scraped up from having a super loose helmet strap. I have had a killer headache 24/7 since then. My back hurts with every step I take because my friend's whole body slammed into my back and my hips are badly displaced at the moment. I can't look to the left, right, up or down that much. At the time I felt bad and I was hurting, but every hour my body has been getting worse and worse and the pain levels keep rising. If it weren't for the pandemic I'd have gone to the doctors and my amazing chiropractor. I have chronic migraines from neck problems so he helps with that, but the chiropractor is closed and my parents don't want to be going to the doctors right now. Understandably. I really should have listened to my dad. Facepalm. TL, Doctor, I didn't listen to my dad and crashed on a four-wheeler because I was speeding as well as being more hurt since my helmet wasn't on right. Edit. This took place in a country which doesn't have English as its primary language, but lingua franca. So, this happened when I was a freshman in high school. It was the first week of the first semester, and my entire class was truly optimistic. We'd gotten around to the Friday, and every impression we'd gotten thus far told us it was a great program, but when we got to the English teacher, how she managed to ruin her impression during the first 5 minutes is mind-blowing to me till this day. I'm 22 now. She introduced herself, and welcomed us to our last class of the week, which happened to be a 90-minute class, instead of the regular 45 minutes. The very first thing she did was write confidently on the board, "I am going to learn you English." Awkward pause. Learn us English, okay? Now, although my vocabulary isn't perfect till this day, I knew that was wrong, and I was baffled by my teacher making that big of a mistake during the first 5 minutes, so I raised my hand. She called my name, and I said, "I'm sorry, but I think you mean teach?" "Teacher, what do you mean?" "In my primary language." "Me, you're going to teach us English, not learn us. We're learning English, but you're teaching us." She looked angry at this point. She actually looked to other students for support, but they said I was right. Teacher: no, I'm learning you. Don't you think I know better than you? I'm your teacher. Where did you get that from? Look it up in the vocabulary. So I did. I asked to borrow hers, since I obviously don't just carry one around during my first week of school, and I found the section which includes the word, and how to use and bend it. I showed her, and she went completely silent for an awkward pause, before she said, "Okay, have you all got the textbook?" Anticlimactic, but I still think it's funny till this day. TLDR, thousands of shop-level employees got laid off based on a computer algorithm the corporate office designed that doesn't factor in seniority and gives preference to certain employees. Store managers and corporate office employees were not affected at all by these layoffs. Please feel free to ask me any questions, I have lots of free time now. And #X200B. I work at a Take 5 oil change, same thing as Jiffy Lube, for 5 years and was terminated yesterday along with 1,000 other lube techs. All the stores only have 1 to 3 people working there now. Nobody at the corporate level got let go, all the store managers are still working, and the rest was left up to a computer algorithm. I took pictures of our company's organizational charts in ADP before they locked me out, showing that corporate employees were not affected at all. The regional manager, who is in charge of over 60 stores, actually said that corporate's computers picked which assistant managers and lube techs would stay and which ones would be terminated with preference given to some assistant managers. I have no say in the matter. Apparently experience wasn't a factor in this algorithm. Lube techs who had worked there for more than 20 years got laid off while some techs who just started last year are still being employed. In the letter they sent out to everyone, they stated that all employees terminated will be considered for rehire subject to work history. They aren't even guaranteeing their jobs back, they're basically telling us we need to fill out an application again and hope for a callback. Does this seem pretty messed up, or is it just me? How can a company lay off people so easily without care? It sounds like they are using the current events as an opportunity to clean house and start fresh with new people once things settle down. I can't imagine a company anywhere that lets a computer tell them who can stay and who can leave during a layoff. I think what bothers me the most is that I know very well the expendable shop-level employees are only getting laid off so the company can afford to pay the management and corporate employees. They still have 10 employees on payroll making $70–80K a year for unit growth and development. This company is not doing any growing or expanding right now. Couldn't they let some of those people go? Thank you for taking the time to read. I just really wanted to vent my frustrations. If what they are doing isn't illegal, then it is certainly the shadiest thing I have ever come across. When I was 17 I used to deliver for a well-known pizza place in the area. Of course Fridays were always insane and this Friday was supposedly going to be the biggest. Halfway through the night I got a delivered to a home for a specialty pie with 5 toppings. The bill came out to $35. Pizza was deep dish when given toppings, so the price was always jacked up, and was hopping for another good tip to bring my night to about $50. As I'm walking up to the door I can hear them trying to shush their dog. Usually whenever this were to happen it was common courtesy for the customer to come outside to avoid any issues with their dog. Well, they open the door and their 100-pound husky comes bolting out, jumps, bites my arm and then attacks the pizza. Luckily I was okay and very disoriented from the whole situation and wasn't sure what to do since the pizza was all over their front steps. They freaked out and continuously apologized. They informed me that they would call the store and order a new pie and pay for both and tip me extra. However, they sent me on my way without ever paying me. My 17-year-old mind was still messed up from getting attacked by their dog. Getting back to the store I find out they never called and we couldn't find their phone number to contact them. Got bit by their dog and ended up not making anything after it all.